And then as far as Q1 in $1,000 XRP, again, it's event driven. We're right here on the precipice of it here, potentially before the end of the month here in December. So I'm very confident that Q1 next year, again, all of this, I think, plays out before the Clarity Act is passed. I think it's been put together that way on purpose. And, we will see a 4-digit XRP. I'll say it this way. I think we see a 4-digit XRP before the Clarity Act is passed. How's that? And if that's early or late Q1, then yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite crypto news related channel. And we are coming live from Tampa, Florida this morning. So once again, excited to be here for today's episode. And we've got plenty of exciting news prepared. I'm going to be covering the XRP ETF inflows as nearly $1 billion worth of XRP has been taken off exchanges and the OTC desk in just the first 10 days since these products have gone live. We're going to break that down a little bit. I've also got the full segment for Brad Garlinghouse live in Dubai from yesterday. Some really exciting news there. He's got some major predictions for 2026, even going as far as to say this is the most bullish year Brad Garlinghouse he has ever seen for digital assets. So I'm going to be talking about that later on in the episode. We've also got Larry Fink, Blackrock CEO, coming out and admitting they got crypto wrong. So wait for that, guys. If they're willing to admit that about Bitcoin, wait until they switch the narrative on XRP as well. And this kind of adds to Jake's statements here, where he's talking about how these larger companies, Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, and of course, BlackRock, they're all stepping into the crypto space. They're all analyzing these assets behind the scenes. And lucky for us in our community, we are all here before that very moment. We do have over 1,000 live listeners, 700 watching on YouTube. If you guys are enjoying this content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know some of your thoughts in chat. I am going to be visiting Mar-a-Lago Mario on this trip, guys. So shout out to Mar-a-Lago Mario. And I wanted to address this quick question here from Love Stocks before we dive into the episode. She said, Abs, honest question. Do you think when this all started back in 2022, it would be almost 2026 and still had hardly broken all-time highs? Did you think we would be much higher by now? I did think we would be much higher by now, and I've changed my thesis on the XRP narrative many times because, of course, if you learn new information, you should change your thesis. It'd be ignorant to not change your opinion. Back in 2021, I was almost certain that we were going to see a $5 XRP in the summer of 2021. All the people who knew me back then, I had barely started making YouTube content, just getting started in this asset class. I was so certain about what was taking place. Then the war on crypto happened. Ripple was sued by the SEC. All this stuff occurred. So yes, if you ask me all the way back in 2020, I would say I anticipated that we'd be higher. But analyzing where we are, just thinking about how suppressed we were all the way through until Donald Trump was elected in the fall of 2024, this asset was 50 cents. I think it changed my perception dramatically. So when I'm looking at the price charts and I see a $2.20 XRP, that's not bearish. It doesn't make me nervous. And quite honestly, I'm actually more excited that we were suppressed during that time because that may lead to a major price appreciation towards the beginning of 2026 post-Clarity Act. Now, what's interesting about what Jake had outlined is that if this major price appreciation moment happens, he anticipates it will occur before the Clarity Act. Now, I do have a brand new segment from SEC Chairman Paul Atkins where he says they're going to try to get this done in Q1 2026. So Jake's theory all playing out in just the next few weeks. He says it during this stream. He goes very blatantly. He's like, guys, we are 27 days till the end of December, and everything's lining up perfectly right now. But I want to give a shout out to the 1970s legend here. Not only a legend of the 1970s, a legend of the good evening crypto community. Shout out to you, my friend. He said, first round on me tonight. Now, not a big alcohol guy, but listen, first round of sodas, I'm drinking Coca-Cola. Shout out to 1970s legend. Big thank you to you, my friend. And I want to give a shout out to Richard as well, another member and a $5 dono. He said, Abs, stop by Clearwater Beach and say hi. You will like it. Well, if I told you where I was right now, you'd be very surprised, my friend. So shout out to you. And Love Stocks, big thank you. Always here, sharing that positive comment. We appreciate the daily members who show up every day. Now, we did just pass 1,000 live listeners. If you're enjoying the content, you want to help out the program, smash that like button. We are live every single day, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We also give you guys an update at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. But I wanted to start off today's episode by breaking down some of the major and important news that we've witnessed thus far and correlating that to what we've seen from Brad Garlinghouse during yesterday's Binance Blockchain Week. Now, I titled today's episode, XRP Inflows Just Passed Bitcoin. What does that mean? During yesterday, Bitcoin had $59 million worth of inflows. XRP had $68 million. Now, why is that relevant? Because think about it. There are way more products for the Bitcoin ETFs than there are for the XRP ETFs. And the largest companies on the planet, BlackRock, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, all of those companies offer Bitcoin ETFs. None of them, for the most part, offer XRP ETFs. And we are still matching the inflows. So very important. It goes to show the institutional demand has arrived for XRP. And that's what we were showing you guys several months ago when I was playing that clip from Canary Capital CEO. I'm forgetting his first name. I think it's Steven something. He was saying that he was anticipating $1 billion worth of inflows in just the first month and $3 to $5 billion worth of inflows in a bullish case scenario. Well, you're going to see during today's episode, guys, we are at $980 million worth of inflows for the XRP ETF since this thing launched earlier this year. And that goes to show, you guys tell me, I'm going to ask the live chat, one's in chat for yes, two's in chat for no. Tell me if you think this is a coincidence. The market goes through a major correction. All retail investors headed into October, headed into November, saying this is going to be the bullish year. October and November, historically bullish months for crypto. And they pulled the rug. The market corrected 35%. And during that time, the ETFs were launched and Charles Schwab, as well as Vanguard, started offering these products to their clients. We also have Bitcoin volume far surpassing anything we've ever seen before. And an example of this, in the first 2 hours of trading on Monday, Bitcoin ETFs did $1.8 billion worth of volume in just the first 2 hours. That is because BlackRock's here. That is because Vanguard's here. That is because Fidelity is promoting these products. And when we start to see the XRP ETFs at the same time be promoted by many of these large companies, we're going to see those inflows ramp up in correspondence with that. So Verhoofdy said, altcoin holders got absolutely destroyed. Now, they did get destroyed during that pullback. And what's great is for long-term holders, guys, if you don't sell the fear, you didn't realize any losses, you didn't lose anything, right? We're all in the same project together. We believe big things are on the horizon. But when you think about it, the XRP price chart held up very well in comparison to many of these other altcoins. And an example of this would be like Cardano. Cardano went down 65, 70%. XRP had a wick down to 150, but it really closed out that week above $2. So it wasn't much of a pullback if you look at it in correlation to some of these other projects. But with that being said, guys, we are going to be diving into this breaking news, not only on the XRP ETFs, but BlackRock admitting they got crypto wrong. Imagine what they're going to be saying about XRP once they flip the switch. And what do I mean by flip the switch? The second that BlackRock can profit off the growth of XRP through an ETF, through tokenized assets, whatever it may be, they're going to be marketing this thing at scale. And I think the marketing has already begun here with this brand new video we're going to show you guys from BlackRock CEO Larry Fink. Now, I wanted to kick off today's episode with a video of Brad Garlinghouse during the Binance Blockchain Week yesterday. And he said some very strong things. He talked about the ETFs. He talked about the massive demand that we've seen. He also talked about how the Clarity Act will kick off the utility market here inside the United States. And maybe the icing on the cake for us guys, as the Good Evening Crypto community, he said he was very optimistic on 2026 being the most bullish year for digital assets yet. So that tells me Brad Garlinghouse is seeing many of the same things we are. We're going to dive into this and let it play. We already got 2,200 live listeners. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button. Let us know some of your thoughts in chat. This is Brad just yesterday during Blockchain's Binance Week.
To come. Brad, why do you think the bears are back in the market?
Well, why the bears back in the market? You know, look, first of all, thank you for having us. I think this is an incredible event. It's my first time to join this event, but hopefully look back to being next year as well. And obviously good to see you both. Look, I think crypto has gone through cycles. And when you have risk on, people are excited. They are, you know, now you have kind of a risk off moment. There's uncertainty. I personally will echo some of the things Richard said. There are so many macro factors that are continuing to provide tailwinds for this industry that I think as we go into 2026, I don't remember being this optimistic in the last handful of years where you do have, as Richard said, regulatory clarity in the largest economy in the world. And I think people underprice this. 22% of global GDP is the United States. And this is a market that has been really openly hostile to crypto for 4 or 5 years, or maybe longer. And now you have that has changed significantly pretty quickly, but the institutions are still catching up with that to some degree. You saw Franklin Templeton on stage here. You saw Blackrock on stage. Just this week, I think Vanguard has now opened up. Vanguard historically has said, we won't touch crypto. And now they've had a massive sea change. That's just one of many things that are creating those tailwinds. And so I'm super optimistic about the year ahead. The last thing I'll say on this, which I think we'll also probably all agree about on this, is we are also seeing real world applications where it's not just about the speculation. You're finding easier to use interfaces so that crypto isn't just about the speculation. It's about solving real world problems. And to sustain that long-term optimism, that long-term bull market, I think you're going to see more and more of that.
What's your take on this too? Do you think the ETF floor was overhyped?
Definitely no.
Quick comment on this, guys, just in case you haven't been tracking this data and information here. What we've seen with the XRP ETFs thus far, we are about to pass $1 billion in assets under management. 425 million units of XRP have been absorbed from exchanges and OTC desks. This is 0.425% of the total supply, but even more importantly, this is over 1% of the circulating supply. So we're beginning to see this already take place, but that's some information you should know heading into this Brad Garlinghouse clip.
Look, obviously what you were describing is all data correct, but I think you got to zoom out a little bit further and realize that this ETFs didn't exist because of the regulatory problems in the United States. They didn't exist. And, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, over $700 million have flown into XRP ETFs, which is just it's pent-up demand from institutional investors, from investors who want access because they don't want to custody themselves, what have you. But look, again, if you zoom out to the macro level, the total ETF market, only 1 or 2% of the total ETF market is crypto. I will bet anybody here that a year from now, that will be more than 1 or 2%. There's going to continue to be inflows. And yes, you can take a snapshot of time and say, okay, there's a billion left Bitcoin ETFs or whatever the data you cited a moment ago. But if you zoom out a little bit further and say, okay, over 2026, do we really think crypto ETFs are only going to be 1 or 2% of the total ETF market? No chance. And so that, again, it's one of those macro tailwinds where Ripple sits in a position where we see, particularly from our Ripple Prime, the prime brokerage business, we see a lot of interesting activity where institutions that have been on the sidelines, maybe because of regulatory clarity, maybe because of risk aversion, for whatever reasons they've been on the sidelines, they're getting involved. And they're starting small, and they're going to walk, then they're going to crawl, then they're going to walk, then they're going to run. And I think it's going to create a lot of tailwind.
So this moment in the market hasn't necessarily spooked institutional capital. That's what you're saying?
Definitely not.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more?
And that's exactly what we said at the beginning of this episode, guys, is that while retail investors are tapping out, institutions are starting to tap in. And we're seeing this with the biggest companies on the planet: Van Eyck, Vanguard, BlackRock, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, Charles Schwab. Every single one of those 5 companies has made a dramatic pivot on how they interact with the digital asset class. And this is pre-Clarity Act. So just to be very clear about what I think is happening, I think these big companies are structuring themselves to profit off the growth that they're seeing for 2026. They're buying these assets at low prices in the midst of this pullback. And what's funny is that retail investors are the ones who are getting fearful. Institutions are starting to be more bullish than the average retail investor. It was the inverse in this market for about a decade. And I do want to give a big thank you to the Horde XRP for the donation and the membership, my friend. Abs, when you take a step back and look at the fundamentals and catalysts, you have to be reminded, the longer the base, the higher the space. And we are talking about the longest base in crypto when you analyze the long-term price action on the XRP price chart. Now, our listeners know this more than most, but the great consolidation that happened from 2022 all the way until the end of 2024, that was suppression. That was a lack of price appreciation. And now I think we're on the opposite end of that coin, where we are about to experience that euphoric moment. Here's a great example of that, guys. I just want to show you how crazy the volatility is. So this one candle right here that happened in July of 2025, this was XRP going from 226 to 285 in a single week. And actually, if you look at the wicks, it went much higher. But that candle is 50 cents in value. That is the entire market cap of XRP down at these ranges. I hope that makes sense to you all. 50 cents is the exact value of all the XRP combined 12 months ago. We did that in 1 week this summer without ETFs, without the Clarity Act, without real world utility. when we have the catalyst play out that Jake Claver is clearly outlining, that will be the moment that we've all been waiting for when it comes to XRP price appreciation. So it would be different. It would be a bearish situation if we were sitting here and utility was implemented and the Clarity Act is passed, all these different things, and we were seeing no momentum on the XRP price chart. But long-term listeners know, even just compared to 14 months ago, we are still 4 times higher than these ranges. And if you look at the XRP price chart, what did it do back in 2017? I've showed you guys this several times, but I do think it's just relevant to go over once more. The XRP price chart in 2017 was in this choppy range, came here, created all-time high, consolidated, new all-time high, big consolidation. But this wick that occurred from XRP at 0.8 of a penny to 0.4 of a penny, before we skyrocketed, it looks very similar to this structure right here. I mean, even if you're a bear, guys, just be totally unbiased and just observing the data. These are very similar structures that we're witnessing on the XRP price chart. And that's just another reason that I'm optimistic. So it's an example of show me the chart and I'll tell you the news. The XRP price chart looks like it's ready to move, while the catalysts are also corresponding with bullish price action. We're going to continue with this Brad Garlinghouse clip. Here he is elaborating even further.
The institutional adoption here and what you're seeing in terms of real world payments as well on the stablecoin side.
Well, I mean, the stablecoin point you're making particularly, I think you are absolutely right that as people kind of went risk off, they stayed on stablecoins, which is indicative of, as Rich was describing, the utility, the 24/7 nature of a stablecoin, but it's also trust, where maybe years ago they might have said, I want to get into a fiat that I trust even more, but people are recognizing the stablecoins can be stable and, easier to manage. But look, this region in particular leaned into regulatory clarity early. Ripple launched a stablecoin just over a year ago. It's just passed about $1 billion market cap. But now it's also been approved in whitelisted in Abu Dhabi as well as in Dubai and the DIFC. It's good collateral on various platforms from a lending point of view. And I think that the tailwinds just on solving real problems and good collateral that's easy to move and is more flexible and can be, moved multiple times a day even, that wasn't possible before. And I think we're going to see a lot of unlocks that, when Ripple thinks about this, and it's an honor to be up here with these two, we want Solana to do great. We want Binance to do great, because I think we're still bringing people into the ecosystem. Stablecoins are one way of doing that. There are going to be lots of other applications, some that Ripple builds, some that are built in the Solana ecosystem, and some that Binance builds.
Speaking of the big guy, President Trump in the US, let's flip it over and talk about what's happening stateside, because Brad, you've also said in the past that the US regulatory environment is, and I quote here, hostile. So do you think that's changed for the better? And what are you seeing right now in terms of the regulatory roadmap in the United States that will ultimately impact your business as well?
Look, I think one of the things that Binance has done incredibly well, the numbers that Richard's talking about 300 million people, they're bringing people into crypto. We all want, there's an echo chamber that we all experience of people in crypto. But the amazing thing about the passionate pioneers that are here in this room is they've been in. We just want that audience to grow. And I think what you're seeing happen in the United States with regulatory clarity, Richard earlier referenced the Genius Act. The Genius Act is regulatory clarity for stablecoins. And you're already seeing more institutional interest in stablecoin payments. Ripple purchased a company called G Treasury recently, which has visibility into over $10 trillion of payments from their corporate customers. And the number of those customers who are already, the acquisition closed Monday. The number of those customers that are already approaching us interested in leveraging stablecoins for the flexibility, for better yield, for as a trusted resource, because of that clarity, people are leaning in. We don't yet have, obviously Ripple went through a long lawsuit with the US government, and XRP received regulatory clarity from the federal courts. We have been championing, and I know Team Solana has been championing regulatory clarity for crypto broadly and what is generally called the Clarity Act in the United States. There's still, forward momentum on that. I don't think it's going to happen this year, which, the President Trump has kind of championed. But, I think sometime in the first half of next year, we'll see passage of legislation, which will continue to unlock and create more tailwinds for the whole industry. I'll go out on the limb and I'll say Bitcoin 180,000 December 23rd or December 31st, 2026.
All right, where's the prediction market around that now? We'll be live in 2 seconds.
So guys, that's a pretty interesting one. One's in chat. If you think Brad Garlinghouse is right, Bitcoin will be 180,000 by December 23rd, 2026. One's for yes, two's for no. What I do think is interesting about that is, once again, when you listen to Brad Garlinghouse talk, he's championing the industry. He's not just talking about Ripple. He's not just focused on what Ripple's doing. He's also talking about how the expansion of the entire digital asset class benefits all these legitimate companies. And Binance is a legitimate company, according to Brad. And Ripple is a great, valid company, according to Brad Garlinghouse, which is obvious. That's why I kind of hesitated there. But we do have 3,500 live listeners, guys. We just passed 450 likes on the episode. If you're enjoying this content, smash that like button, share some of your thoughts in chat. I did title today's episode, BlackRock admitting they got crypto wrong. Wait for the 180 you are about to see from BlackRock CEO here in Larry Fink. Now, why is this relevant to us? Because we know the same thing is going to happen for XRP. The same way they won't talk about XRP and Bitcoin was only used by criminals a couple of years ago. Now they're admitting they were wrong about the digital asset class. And I think we're going to see a rapid expansion of many of our favorite digital assets through companies like this. The biggest adversaries, the biggest contrarians here are going to become our greatest allies. Believe it or not, BlackRock is going to bring in the next 100 million users from the American market into the digital asset space because the baby boomers are waiting for the validation from companies like this. I know this firsthand because I communicate with a lot of people who are above 65, above 70 years old. And they're like, Abs, I'm not going to buy it until I can call my broker and buy it. Well, now they have the ability to call their broker and buy it. So we're going to see this big flip here. Let's play this brief clip and break it down.
Called Krypto an index for money laundering. BlackRock
and thieves.
and thieves.
Yes.
Money laundering and thieves.
Right.
You now have the biggest Bitcoin ETF. So what happened here?
I have very strong views, but that doesn't mean I'm not wrong. By having strong views, you have to test yourself and ask yourself. And, in my role, I see, thousands of clients a year. I have, governmental leaders, and we have these conversations, and my thought process always evolves. And this is a very glaring public example of a big shift, in my opinion.
And there you have it, guys. So Larry Fink, BlackRock admits they get it wrong, and they're fully capable of changing their opinion and changing how they view this digital asset class. Let's just look this up. BlackRock and Ripple XRP ETF, because again, there's a really popular video out there, and there's two videos. There's one of Brad Garlinghouse kind of addressing this, and that's this one right here. Let's just let this brief clip play. I'm going to elaborate on this and tell you how it kind of connects to what Larry had to say.
So you would welcome an XRP ETF then?
We would certainly welcome it, and I think it's inevitable that there'll be, multiple ETFs around different tokens. I think you'll even see ETFs potentially around baskets that also, I think, further diversify that risk.
Are you in talks with the largest issuers, particularly BlackRock, to get this done?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. I know BlackRock has said some things publicly. We think it makes sense for the XRP community overall.
And that's pretty much all you need to hear right there. Brad Garlinghouse didn't say, no, we didn't talk to them. No, there's not similar interests there. No, our business models don't align. He goes, well, I know BlackRock has said some things. I'm not going to elaborate on what we've talked about, but I think it makes sense for the XRP community overall. So it benefits BlackRock, it benefits XRP holders, it benefits companies like Ripple. And so there's the word. Autumn, great comment. She said, there's the word inevitable. Brad Garlinghouse said, inevitable. And that's what I think we're all waiting on here, guys. The moment that BlackRock gives the XRP bull market endorsement, one of two things is going to happen there. One, they're selling the retail. We're either at the top. We've already had the major price appreciation. That means we're looking at a 20, 30, 50, maybe even just a $10, $12 XRP. And BlackRock starts telling people, we believe in this asset class. That might be a sign we're at the top. The second thing would be if we haven't had major price appreciation and BlackRock flips the switch and they start selling this asset class to their customers, that might be an exciting moment for the XRP price chart as well. Because from that point forward, we're going to see millions of customers onboarded very consistently, the same way we see with Bitcoin ETFs. Bitcoin's price action after the ETF launch became much more stable, much more steady up and to the right. I think we're starting to see that same thing with some of these altcoins, but it's only a couple. It's Ethereum, it's Solana, it's XRP. And I had a conversation with Johnny Krypto this morning. We're talking about the future of Solana and Ethereum. And I'm talking about the scaling issues with both those technologies. And he goes, Abs, I've been talking about this since the late 90s. And you were wearing diapers, as Johnny Krypto would say. He said, it's not about the best technology. It's about who supports the technology. And one of the reasons that I think Ethereum and Solana, although I disagree with the scaling capabilities of that tech, will be here to stay is because when you look at what Securitize is doing, they're tokenizing assets on Ethereum. When you look at where smart contracts are, 70% are on Ethereum. When you look at where stablecoins are being minted, 60% is on Ethereum. So these ecosystems are so big and they're so dominant, and big players are consistently choosing to build in them, that even though I don't really believe in the Ethereum scaling capability, I think that because the big boys have chosen this asset class, it's probably here to stay for the foreseeable future. And we're probably going to see Ethereum perform very well during this bull market. Now, another person who's been very outspoken about this is Eric Trump. We talked about Eric Trump yesterday because he quote tweeted Coach JV, which was awesome. But he's also been very outspoken that Ethereum will be the base layer for the future of finance. I disagree. I think it'll be XRP. We talk about that every single day. But if you have big names like Eric Trump saying that, it means there's a narrative in the Wall Street kind of closed door meetings that Ethereum is where financial products are being developed. And that's just the truth of the matter for the time being, at least until the Clarity Act is passed and we're looking at a level playing field inside the United States. Now, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our 246th member, this person right here, JJS Global Inc., Payment Pros 1759. That's a mouthful. Shout out to our newest member. And Krypto commented, I feel like XRP is saying Voldemort for TV news. Exactly, guys. The name that shall not be spoken, as we like to say. But here's the thing. If BlackRock and Larry Fink are willing to admit they got crypto wrong, that's just one step away from saying, yeah, we didn't realize the potential of XRP. We're going to be changing our narrative there too. So one's in chat if you think BlackRock is going to change their narrative. Two's in chat if you think they're going to die on the hill that Ripple and XRP are just incapable of being understood here in this current environment. Now, another thing that's important about this, guys, is that there's a bunch of different catalysts that are kind of working in favor of the XRP community. And Jake has his narrative and we have our narratives. But one of the things that's absolutely clear is that the demand for XRP is at an all-time high. No debate about it. There's more conversation, more energy around this asset class than we have ever seen before. And what does that mean? As more people step into this asset class and begin understanding the potential, they're going to start buying these assets. But that's yet to occur. We are going to cover this update right here. I want to give a big thank you and shout out to Nova Crypto. He said, Justin, the CFTC has announced it has developed a comprehensive plan for the U.S. to reclaim its place as the world leader in crypto. Caroline Pham tweets, it's true. Again, this is pretty cool because we're looking at something that we've never seen before. U.S. government regulators becoming pro-crypto. We didn't have this for Obama. We didn't have this for Trump's first term. We didn't have this during Biden. And now we finally have it in 2025 where the SEC is pro-crypto, the CFTC is pro-crypto. We've got a crypto working group, got a digital asset crypto czar in David Sachs. So all these great things are really working in our favor. It's not difficult to be a crypto investor right now. It was very difficult over the past couple of years to be overly bullish and overly optimistic on this digital asset class. Now, I am in Florida for today, guys, so I am going to have to do a little bit of a shorter episode. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button. Let us know some of your thoughts in chat. I am going to be producing a 5:30 p.m. update later on as well. This man said digital ID is coming. At least we can profit off of it, right? That's all I'll say. Now, I did want to give you a quick update, and that's lighthearted, in regards to the XRP rich list, because again, this is something our listeners should keep in mind. If you only have a couple of, someone said something important here, Abs, 50% of your material is Jake. It's important to come to see more price alignment. I think the only difference that me and Jake have is the timeline, right? The timeline of how quickly these things are going to take place. I've said it time and time again, by the end of the Trump administration, I'm very optimistic. I think we're looking at a triple-digit XRP. But when I look at the macroeconomic circumstances, I don't have the same insight that Jake does. What Jake's theory kind of stems from is the private conversations he's had behind the scenes. I haven't had those conversations. I haven't been privy to those discussions. So for my personal take of what I've observed in the crypto market, I think it's going to take about 2.5, 3 years to really see these technologies scale. And listen to me, listen to Johnny Krypto, listen to Jake Claver, whoever you decide. But Johnny Krypto said this isn't the first time we've seen something like this. In 1996, after the Telecom Act was passed, There was a 3-year bull market on internet technologies. What he's anticipating is that we're going to see something very similar for crypto, where the Clarity Act is passed, speculation goes to an all-time high, and we see these digital assets outperform, not just for 3 months or 6 months or a short bull market, 3, maybe even 4 years of bullish price action. That's what we saw in the late 90s. He's anticipating we're seeing something similar. That really aligns with what Jake's theory is as well. Now, the thing that I'm guessing on is the price, just like you guys are. I've got no insight into the XRP price chart any more so than anybody else does. But what I do know is the supply and demand, and the law that we apply on this channel: more demand, same supply, price appreciation. Very simple equation there. That is what we're watching. We're not waiting anymore. We're watching it. And I showed you guys the data. $1 billion worth of assets under management for XRP ETFs in just the first 10 days since going live. That is what we're waiting for. That's what we need to see. Given a long enough period of time, there's only so much XRP available on exchanges. Now, in regards to a quick XRP rich list update, we talk so much about the ETFs, I'm saying even when I'm not supposed to. Here's the current data. To be in the top 10% of XRP wallets worldwide, you only need about 2,300 units of XRP. And there's a lot of people out there, they've got 500 units, they've got 800 units, they've got 1,200 units. I think a great goal that everybody should have is focusing on accumulating these assets. Get yourself into the top 10% while it's still possible. Because while right now, accumulating 2,300 units of XRP, it's about a $5,500 investment, give or take. Maybe it's about $6,000. If we're looking at an even $10 price for XRP, that is a $23,000 investment. So it's important that we take advantage of these low prices. And we also take advantage of the products that we offer here, guys. That's why I always talk about ITrust. We got some really positive feedback yesterday. We are leading in the ITrust developments here, because here's why. They offer a great product. If you have a Roth IRA, you can take advantage of crypto gains completely tax-free by leveraging the ITrust company here. And the thing that really catches my attention is here's what I'm doing. I have a Roth IRA. I'm 27 years old. I'm not going to be touching those assets for a really long time. I wanted to get some crypto exposure. I got Bitcoin exposure and XRP exposure in my iTrust by leveraging this, and all of those gains are tax-free. So yes, I'm going to have to wait a whole long time before I can touch those assets. But if I'm not going to be touching it for a really long time, I already have this IRA established because of work. Why not just allocate some of that towards crypto and let that compound over the next decade or so? So if you haven't, click on the link below, apply some of the same concepts we do. You can check it out. But if you do click on the link below, you're going to get $100 sign up bonus. So $100 free to start funding your account. And this is a regulated product. They've got billions in assets under management. They did over 15 billion in transactions last year. This is a huge company. So I'd advise everybody, check it out. I know Johnny has an account. I use this product. This is something that we use, and that's why I'm so comfortable talking about it here on this channel. So click on the link below. And once again, $100 free sign up bonus to get you guys started. Pretty cool. Now, if we're looking at some of the other impacts here, to be in the top 5% of token holders for XRP, you need about 8,000 units of XRP. Now, that's pretty substantial investment. At a $2.20, we're talking about 17,500, maybe even 18 grand here. This is why we have to take advantage of these price dips. And that's why I'm so optimistic that moments like we're going through right now on the XRP price chart, we're holding this iron wall at $2. There's big institutional players. There's large retail investors who are not letting XRP fall below $2. That is absolutely clear. We really haven't had any daily or weekly closures below $2 since Donald Trump was elected. If we did, they were very short-lived. Well, what does that mean for us? It means that this could be the floor. And this could be the moment that people look back on just a few months from now and said, I wish I bought more at those prices. I've heard it time and time again. Think about it this way, guys. Everybody who was buying here, you were called an idiot. They told you you were buying a stablecoin. You were buying a cult token. And little did they know you were going to be proven absolutely correct in November of 2024. Imagine if we're witnessing something similar here where, yeah, right now it's bearish. Maybe we go up to here, we trade sideways, we come down, we consolidate, and eventually, boom, we break out brand new all-time highs. And everybody says, I wish I bought more during that initial dip at $2 back in 2025. We got over 5,200 live listeners, guys. If you enjoyed today's content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. It does greatly help us out. And guess what? We just passed 36,500 followers on the channel. We are one of the fastest growing communities in all of crypto. So shout out to you guys. The question that we asked you all today, XRP will pass Ethereum in 2026. 80% say yes, 21% say no. And here's what I believe. I believe that Ethereum, yeah, it's going to be a bullish year. It'll probably perform fairly well, but I think XRP is going to have a way higher return on investment. And my prediction has been when utility kicks in, when we get this bull market, the liquidity cycle plays out, XRP is destined to pass Ethereum once again, just like how it did back in 2017. So we love you guys. We appreciate you all. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button. We just passed 620 likes. We're going to be back 11 a.m. tomorrow. I think Johnny Krypto will be on the show for tomorrow. I've also got Sal Gilberti and I've got Matt Hogan from Bitwise joining the channel December 18th and December 19th. I'm going to keep talking about those interviews. Very excited. We're going to have some phenomenal stuff to talk about, especially considering that both of those men have XRP ETFs live inside the United States. So we love you guys. We appreciate you all. Go out, touch some grass, hug some family, enjoy the day, and we'll see you all in the next one.
You're going to be so proud of your president, and I don't care about that. But you are going to be so proud of your country because we're going to turn it around and we're going to start winning again. We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. See, the bottom line is...
Well, you don't know much about crypto. You know nothing about nothing. You're fake news.
So if you're looking to do the same strategies that we implement here on Good Evening Crypto, I would advise everybody sign up for Merlin and click on the ITrust Capital link below. Now, why did these two ideas play off one another? Merlin is going to allow our listeners to understand where they should be taking profit in this market, and ITrust is going to allow our listeners to take that profit tax-free through an IRA product. Now, that's not the best part about this. We are giving new clients a $100 sign-up bonus using the promo code GEC9. So I would encourage everybody, click on the link below the video, use promo code GEC9, and set yourself up for success during this crypto bull market.